On this Sunday night, as Canadians pause to remember service and sacrifice, world leaders warn about the rise of nationalism.
When people feel their institutions can't protect them, they look for easy answers.
A very pointed call for global tolerance 100 years after the end of the First World War. And later,
I also especially think of the soldiers who have come home with wounds that we can't see.
her son Thomas took his own life after a tour in Afghanistan. Tonight, a powerful conversation with the Silver Cross mother about mental health in the military and what it means to be recognized on this Remembrance Day.
Plus, devastation in California.
We thought we were going to die.
Dozens are still missing, and the battle against the wind and the flames far from over. So, how did the disaster turn political? This is The National.
100 years ago today, millions of men laid down their guns. The armistice, bringing an end to the First World War. A century later, world leaders gathered again in France, calling for unity and some warning against hateful and divisive politics. But let's begin here in Canada, where here at the National War Memorial, silence served as a powerful reminder of the scale of the sacrifice.
How do we show gratitude to our veterans? By embracing them, by hugging them, by expressing our appreciation to every veteran we meet, in all places and at all times. By teaching our children how much in their debt we always will be. We reflect on the notion of a world war. We ask, if the world can be at war, is it not possible for the world to be at peace?
The National Silver Cross mother, Ms. Anita Senarini, is the mother of the late Private Thomas Welch. He was the first Canadian soldier to die by suicide after serving in Afghanistan.
Anita represents mothers who've lost loved ones to suicide as a result of battlefield wounds that we can't see. And I think all of us proudly stand with her to recognize that phenomena, that horrible phenomena, and honor them as well.
I'm amazed by what they did at such a young age, because they were all, basically just teenagers or a little older at the time to volunteer for their country.
I think it's important to go back, remember our values, remember what we've learned from the past, and moving forward, don't lose sight of what they fought for.
Learning from the past and moving forward is why Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and 60 other world leaders were brought together in France, where the armistice was signed. The French president warned that the forces that drove countries to war a century ago are once again on the rise, while Trudeau had a warning of his own. The CBC's Tom Perry is in Paris.
100 years since the guns fell silent, world leaders came together in a show of unity.
10 millions de morts. 6 millions de blessés et mutilés.
French President Emmanuel Macron reminded his fellow leaders of the horrendous cost of war, and he warned of what he called old demons rising to the surface.
Car le patriotisme est l'exact contraire du nationalisme.
Nationalism is the opposite of patriotism, Macron said. When we say our interests first, who cares about the others? We erase what a nation holds dearest, its moral values. Macron's message was delivered in front of Donald Trump, a self-described nationalist and champion of America First. The U.S. president was listening just steps away, but if he was offended, it didn't show. And Macron was not alone in his warning.
If a democracy is to function, you need to have an educated populace and you need to have an informed populace.
Justin Trudeau spoke after today's ceremony at the Paris Peace Forum, organized to mark this 100-year anniversary. Trudeau called out those in power who attack the media, saying that can only weaken democracy.
When people feel their institutions can't protect them, they look for easy answers in populism, in nationalism, in closing borders, in shutting down trade, in xenophobia.
Trudeau didn't mention any politicians by name, but Russian President Vladimir Putin, who Trudeau sat next to at the Peace Forum, has been accused of using social media to foster confusion and influence elections. Trudeau never mentioned Donald Trump either, but the U.S. president routinely calls the media enemies of the people and has a habit of labeling any story he doesn't like fake news. Trump wasn't there to hear Trudeau anyways. He skipped the Peace Forum altogether. Tom Perry, CBC News, Paris.
And in the final hours before peace, Canada's soldiers had one last duty in the First World War: to capture the Belgian city of Mons. And they did it at great sacrifice. And today, a show of gratitude for that sacrifice. And the CBC's Nala Ayed was there.
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
Take away the big screens, the modern clothes and cell phones. And at times in the city of Mons today, it could have been 100 years ago. That was the aim of the Royal Highlanders of Canada, also called the Black Watch, to recreate the regiment's march into Mons as liberators on November 11th, 1918.
We just did the same route that this pipe band did 100 years ago, exactly the same route. We just took a band picture at the same place where our troops stayed 100 years ago. And the same band picture, if you'd like to see it, we've got it. So you put all that together, it can be nothing but emotional.
Lyle Davidson's grandfather, William, fought in the war and marched here too.
You wonder, like, he had memories that he shouldn't have had. And so, remember, you know, that's a big thing.
Preparations for this day have been years in the making. For visiting Canadians too, like this high school history teacher from Lindsay, Ontario, who saved for 2 years to get here.
It's the beginning of our course. We start with World War I. It was teenagers like them, young men, young women coming over as nurses. We try to make it as personal and try to come up with how they would feel in those situations.
Here too, Canadians marched in their predecessors' footsteps, in the same square, though they were deeply traumatized then and exhausted.
When we reached up the square and in the front of the town hall, it was packed with people cheering and singing and dancing.
The words of a Canadian soldier then, read by a Canadian soldier now. Today, too, the appreciation was on display. We don't speak enough of the Canadians who liberated this city, says Mons resident Elisabeth Gallet. Thank you, 1,000 times thank you.
Canada is a humble nation, and we stand with you in solidarity, vigilant that such dark days may never enter our homes, nor such shadows fall across our hearts ever again.
These are markedly different times. But then, as now, the peace is precious. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Mons, Belgium.
I'll be back a little later from Ottawa with my conversation with this year's Silver Cross mother. Anita Senerini's son, Thomas, took his own life just 3 months after returning home from Afghanistan. She fought tirelessly after his death for him to receive full military honors.
I was always determined from the beginning that and believed that Thomas's death would be classified as being attributable to service. And to lay him to rest in a place that not just honored who he was as a person, but to have his ashes rest in a place that finally give him honor, the honor that he deserved.
We also talked about the moment that she knew her son was going to war, Andrew, how it changed him, and the importance, of course, of breaking down the stigma around mental health in the military. That's all still ahead on The National. But first, let's go over to you there in Toronto.
Yeah, of course, Rosie. We are keeping a close eye on those wildfires burning in California tonight.
Welcome to my home in Malibu.
The danger is far from over. Firefighters are still struggling to contain 3 devastating fires because hot, dry winds returned to the region today. At least 31 people have been killed. More than 200 people now reported missing, and thousands of homes are destroyed. Most in a town called Paradise, obliterated by fire. And whereas Kim Brunhuber reports, residents had a harrowing journey to safety.
Just imagine fire on either side of the road, flames licking the undercarriage of your car, then your car dies.
We were just sitting there. We thought we were going to die. If we would have waited 5 more minutes, we wouldn't be here today.
Lining the roads today, a ghostly caravan of cars abandoned by those stuck in gridlock. It was faster to run. 160 kilometers north of Sacramento, more than 6,000 homes gone. Fire devoured neighborhoods in minutes. The quaint town of Paradise reduced to ash and rubble.
There ain't nothing to go back to. And, you know, we're basically homeless right now.
Now a frenzied, desperate search for the missing. And a slow, meticulous search for the dead. In Southern California, 2 more fires, smaller, less deadly, but growing fast. 250,000 people ordered to evacuate their homes. Whole towns suddenly emptied.
It's hard to process, and it's just massive loss in such a short amount of time.
Tyler Turquin stayed to fight the rapidly approaching fire from his rooftop. His home survived. Others did not.
You know, we thought we were ready. We'd hosed everything down, but when it came over this ridge right here behind us, it was a 100-foot wall of flames.
In this wealthy enclave of Malibu, a beach has become a menagerie for animals owners left behind. A mansion pool, a fill-up station for water bombers. The hot, dry Santa Ana winds show no sign of letting up.
We're expecting similar fire behavior and winds tomorrow.
From some who lost everything, a promise. They will be back.
You gotta be strong, you know. We rebuild. This is where we live.
A firefighter rescues an American flag, careful not to let it touch the ground, drapes it carefully over a mailbox for those who will return. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Now, some in California are accusing the U.S. president of adding insult to their injury after he tweeted about the fires. Donald Trump seemed to blame state officials for the devastation and issued a threat. Paul Hunter has that story.
Truth is, there's long been a debate in California over forestry management, but experts insist there's no single cause to what's happening there right now. Rather, it's a mix of things, including that, but also climate change, dry weather, high winds, and urban growth. Adding, most of California's forests are managed by the federal government anyway. And yet, tweeted the president Saturday, there is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California except that forest management is so poor, threatening to cut billions in federal money to California unless, as he put it, they remedy now. Or, as he tweeted today, get smart. All of this while Californians watch the flames grow.
This late in the fire season to have this kind of devastation, it just takes your breath away.
Adam Schiff, Democratic lawmaker for L.A. County, today slammed Trump for threatening to pull federal money, suggesting it's political payback for a state that broadly rejects Trump's policies.
This just goes to show how little he understands the job he has, that he would be punitive at a time like this rather than coming to the defense of people facing the worst disaster of their lives. He is only the president, I think, in his view, of those who voted for him. The rest he could care less.
In a rare sign of partisan consensus, even a key Republican today urged Trump to ease up.
Now it's not time to talk about cutting off money. With all due respect, we're going to help our friends in California. They need help.
Celebrities joined in, among them singer and Trump critic Katy Perry, who called the president's comments heartless. Even firefighters pushed back. The head of the state's largest firefighters group called Trump an idiot, labeling his tweet ill-informed and shameful, adding, now's the time for support, not recrimination and blame. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
New revelations tonight about the murder of a Canadian man in the Philippines. Barry Gammon was shot to death this past June. A Fifth Estate investigation has revealed he was killed following a dispute with church members in the Philippines. The Iglesia Ni Cristo, as it's called, has millions of followers around the world, including Canada. Bob McEwen investigated the church, its connections to Canada, and allegations its members in the Philippines are tied to financial irregularities, kidnapping, and murder.
Lucy Gammon is searching for the man who killed her husband.
So, Lucy, we try to get as many pictures as we can.
Until recently, she and her Canadian spouse Barry lived in the Philippines. They'd built their dream home and had a son. It was a peaceful life until a church went up next door called Iglesia Ni Cristo, known as INC. That's when an escalating dispute began about construction and traffic noise 24/7.
3 o'clock we're awake. Our son is awake. How are you gonna have peace in that?
You're on my property.
Barry recorded this confrontation with an INC member on his phone.
We're not done. I'm the senior in court. Asshole.
Then last June, another man appeared with a gun.
This guy came in and just shoot him. Just keep on shooting and shooting.
Barry Gammon died of his wounds that night. Based in the Philippines, with over 80 congregations in Canada, the church has millions of followers worldwide, and increasingly, allegations against members of financial impropriety, kidnapping, murder. No one knows that better than Lowell Menorca, a prominent INC minister, until he was accused of leaking church secrets.
They frisked me, handcuffed me, and put a jacket over my head, dragged me out of the compound.
Eventually, Menorca escaped and fled to Vancouver, given refugee protection, when Canadian authorities agreed the church had both the means and the motivation to kill him. Today, he's helping Lucy Gammon and her 7-year-old son, JJ, to settle in Canada, too, and to find her husband's killer.
So I wanted to ask you, Lucy, are you absolutely sure that this is the guy who shot Barry?
Yes, I'm 100% sure it's him. I know it's him, and I can feel in my heart it's him.
Me too.
You too? Are you sure that's him? You saw him? Okay.
The man Lucy identified has INC connections, and a local police report agrees that the fatal attack on Barry Gammon could well have been triggered by his dispute with members of the church. INC itself denies involvement in that murder or in violence of any kind.
I promised my husband that I will not stop until I find justice for him.
Now in BC, Lucy Gammon has gone to the federal government, hoping Canada can spur Philippine police to find and hold accountable the man who she says killed her husband. Bob McEwen, CBC News, Vancouver.
CBC News has been in touch with Global Affairs Canada, and they say they are in contact with local authorities in the Philippines to gather additional information about the murder of Barry Gammon. Okay, here's a look at other stories we're following tonight on The National. Some of the 82 Canadians who survived a crash landing 2 days ago at an airport in Guyana are now back in Canada and telling their stories.
People are like screaming, they're cursing, they're praying, they're like, oh my God, there's like so much chaos going on at the time and it just wouldn't end. And these are the big spikes, concrete spikes that broke the wheels off.
The airline Fly Jamaica said today it's too early to comment on the cause of the crash. It's still working to get many of the 120 passengers home.
Time, let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes.
Canadian actor Douglas Rain died today. He was a veteran of the Stratford Festival, as well as early Canadian television productions, but he made perhaps his biggest mark on pop culture as the voice of Hal the Computer in the landmark film 2001, A Space Odyssey.
You don't mind talking about it, do you, Dave?
Douglas Rain was 90 years old.
We have a lot more ahead for you tonight on this Remembrance Day. We'll take you to an abandoned island in Newfoundland, once home to a thriving community until the First World War. David Common is there as a man who grew up on the island returns home. And decades after she worked as a warplane electrician, a 91-year-old woman comes face to face with the plane she helped build. Her moment is our moment of the day.
That's a great story. First, though, a Go Public investigation. A bank customer has a hunch something's wrong with her account, and she winds up fighting for years to get a copy of her own record.
At this point, it's really not about the money. It's about what they've done, how they've done it, and how they would have almost got away with it had I not been so stubborn.
A woman spent 2 years battling her bank for her own financial records is going public tonight, defying a confidentiality agreement to shed light on what she says is a secretive system that's stacked against the customer. She told her story to Rosa Marcatelli.
So this is some of my files.
All that paperwork is the result of 2 years of fighting CIBC for her own account record, a record Rhonda McMillan believed would confirm unauthorized activity on her account.
I'm pretty persistent, but I was getting, worn down.
After filing a complaint with the bank's ombudsman, she finally got the document, but had to sign a confidentiality agreement, promising not to tell anyone anything about what the document revealed or the investigation. She contacted Go Public anyway after seeing that bank slip and believing it shows CIBC employees made unauthorized transactions, moving money around and reopening an account she'd closed.
You fight to get your own bank document for 2 years. Yeah. There's a signature you don't recognize on that bank document. Then the bank says, we'll give you some compensation, we'll give you some money, but you can't tell anyone about this.
That really bothers me because at this point it's really not about the money. It's about what they've done, how they've done it, and how they would have almost got away with it had I not been so stubborn.
She'll likely never know why it happened. After waiting so long to get that bank record, she says the bank told her too much time had passed to get answers.
Consumers are getting thrown under the bus here.
This consumer advocate is calling for one independent complaints resolution service all banks have to use. Right now, big banks have their own, and they get to pick and choose which of 2 national ones they want to investigate consumer complaints.
We have a situation where essentially banks get to choose their referee. And they're consistently choosing now the referee that investigates fewer complaints, that finds fewer of those complaints in favor of customers.
The federal government recently proposed legislation it says will make the banking complaint system more transparent. It doesn't include a plan for one dispute resolution service.
I want people to know what happened. Maybe it's happened, to other people.
CIBC didn't respond to Go Public's specific questions, but in a written statement, it says it strongly disputes the nature of the allegations. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
I'll be back right after the break with more from the National War Memorial. I sat down recently with this year's Silver Cross mother. We spoke about her son who died from suicide after returning home and how his time in Afghanistan changed him forever.
I was assured that because he was so young, and this was his first deployment, that what he was experiencing was normal, and it wasn't normal to me as his mom who knew him.
That was Anita Cinerini, this year's Silver Cross mother, laying a wreath this morning at the Remembrance Day ceremony in Ottawa. For 98 years, the cross was presented to mothers of Canadian soldiers killed during active duty. But this year marked the first time it was given on behalf of a soldier who died from suicide after returning home. Private Thomas Welch took his own life on May 8, 2004, at the age of 22. He was deemed the first veteran of the Afghanistan mission to die by suicide, but he was certainly not the last. I visited Anita Cinerini at her home in Winnipeg to talk about Thomas, what he means to her, and what he went through.
So when they asked you to become the Silver Cross mother, why did you agree?
Because of the season that we're in this country. at a national level the awareness to mental health, the awareness of mental illness, and within the military, the awareness of mental illness and operational stress injuries, the number of soldiers who've come home from Afghanistan and have taken their own life.
Tell me what Thomas was like.
He was a very loving individual. He had a huge heart.
When you say he had a huge heart, how did that manifest itself?
He loved easily, and he was very compassionate and caring to people and their situations. He was protective of the people that he loved, especially the women that he loved. He took his sister to her prom.
Oh, really?
He escorted her in his formal uniform.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. He loved being in nature. It wouldn't be beyond Thomas to say, "Can we go to the waterfall today, Mom?" And we'd all go, and we'd all wander off and sit on our own special little rock.
So why did he decide to join the military? Because it's not something that's in your family. No. It's not something you passed on to him. Where did that come from?
Thomas decided that he would join the military, and he would do the 3 years, and then he would leave, and he would have some experience, a foundation that he then could work towards becoming a police officer. And that's how it started.
Was there something around 9/11 too, where he saw?
Yeah. So he signed up in the end of August 2001, and September 11th, we were in the living room, Thomas, Jacob, and I, and we saw the news footage on television, and we were both shocked and horrified. And I started to talk right away about, what this would mean. And Thomas said that he was pretty sure that he would have to go to war. And I said, "Thomas, you don't have to stay in the military, you can leave." And I was crying. Just the thought of him going. And he came and he sat beside me. And I had Jacob in my arms, and he put his arms around me, and he said, "Well, Mom, they need me now more than ever."
When he was over there, did you realize immediately that he wasn't doing well?
He came home in October for his leave. And it was then that I noticed.
What did you notice?
He wasn't sleeping, and he was agitated, and he uncharacteristically didn't want to be home. When he went back, he began to deteriorate in my eyes because he was calling me home. And one of the notable things were Christmas time, because I was sending care packages every week. But he was adamant that we send nothing at Christmas. And that really concerned me enough that at the base where I was dropping off the care packages, I actually asked to speak to someone. I was assured that because he was so young, and this was his first deployment, that what he was experiencing was normal, and how he was reacting was normal, and wasn't normal to me as his mom who knew him.
When he came back, did you see him right away? Did you talk to him?
Well, he was sometimes crying in the phone calls, and sometimes angry, and I encouraged him to get help, and he said that there was no help available to him.
It took a long time for them to give you any answers, right? It took a long time for the answers and for them to recognize why it had happened.
Yeah, it did. I believed that Thomas suffered while he was in Afghanistan. And he came home, and he didn't receive the help that he needed. I knew that. I believed it. It was the truth that I knew in my heart. And somehow I just knew that one day the truth would come out.
Thomas's ashes are still here, and it's been 13 years, 14 years?
14 years.
14 years since his death. Yeah. And you held on to them, and now that there is, closure's a weird word, but there's a conclusion to that part of the story. Can you let them go? Can you bury the ashes? Can you?
Yeah. Everything is a process. Yeah, well, there were practical reasons why we didn't have Thomas's ashes buried right away. But the other reason was I was determined. I was always determined from the beginning that, and believed that Thomas's death would be classified as being attributable to service. And to lay him to rest in a place that not just honored who he was as a person, but to have his ashes rest in a place that to give him honor, the honor that he deserved.
And when you're sitting there on Remembrance Day in the cold in front of the cenotaph, what will you be thinking?
I'm honored to represent other mothers who've lost a son or daughter in service to their country. But I also think about the soldiers who have their boots on the ground right now. It's important to honor them. But since Thomas's death, I also especially think of the soldiers who have come home with wounds that we can't see, that they deal with every day.
He'd be proud of you.
I hope so.
Private Thomas Welch's death by suicide is far from an isolated case. Since 2010, 130 Canadian soldiers and veterans have killed themselves. Research has shown that young male former soldiers are 242% more likely to take their own lives than the general population. And last year, the Liberal government released a suicide prevention strategy involving both Veterans Affairs and the Department of National Defence to try and reduce the number of suicides. We often talk about how parts of Europe were changed forever by war, but up next, we're going to show you how a small community here in Canada was destroyed in the wake of the First World War, and we'll make the journey back to Newfoundland, the island, with a man who grew up there.
Those boards there?
Yeah.
That's the church.
It blew down.
It's almost like a living museum. The more you read about it, you can almost see the life that was here.
And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest.
At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
That was how people across Canada honored Remembrance Day today. But one man chose to mark the occasion in a different way. His hometown in Newfoundland has all but disappeared, abandoned by the people who lived there because of a single event in the First World War. David Common was with him as he returned to the place he grew up for the first time in decades.
This is a journey back in time.
They say it's hard to find now because it's grown in.
Back a century, when lives and landscapes would be forever changed by war. How one battle would destroy a community of 140, thousands of kilometers from the front.
You can hardly believe it was like that, eh? Because all the trees are growing up.
Yeah.
How conflict would erase the town of Three Arms and force families away.
Oh, we're home again.
It is a struggle for Eric Moore to return to Three Arms. His was the last family to leave the island, and one of just a handful still alive who ever lived here.
Well, it's kind of sad though, eh? Yeah. You know, when you see it now and when it was alive. The place is dead now. It's all written down underneath.
The fate of the community was sealed in 1916.
Yeah, that's it.
By the death of this man, a young lieutenant of the First World War. Word of Stephen Norris's death crashed into Three Arms like a giant wave. And then came a dispatch all the way from France to his parents saying he was killed instantaneously by a big shell just as he was trying to rescue another man who'd been buried by another shell. His commanding officer saying to his mother and father, their son was a most promising officer, and I deeply regret his loss.
Now, you never knew him, of course.
Oh, God, no.
But you knew the family.
Yes, well, I knew Mrs. Norris.
The Norris family owned all the businesses in Three Arms, a fish plant, a store, and several schooners. Devastated by losing his son and with his other children not interested in taking over, Norris's father would shut it all down within a few years.
With the loss of the Norris family.
Oh, well, that was the end of it. You had to go someplace else then, and there was no point of anybody coming here. They had nothing to get, you know.
Homes would be abandoned. All that remains are foundations, remnants of a shattered community.
Yeah, break your heart, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
An echo of the effects across Newfoundland and Canada.
I like to think of how things were and the people who were here before me, and just how their lives were different from ours. I'd love to step back in time and just walk through these fields with them. I really like...
Nancy Vergis is trying to keep the history of Three Arms alive. Now, Eric Moore's neighbor, she's here to ensure his memories are not lost.
Those boards there?
Yeah.
That's the church.
It blew down.
It's almost like a living museum. The more you read about it, you can almost see the life that was here, especially going through with you guys, and you know, you're studying the land more. And you know, I see the house that was there, and then you think, okay, well, the little kids that ran in and out that door 100 times, or the church threshold. You know, how many people walked through there? We only have stories to tell us now.
But for Nancy, there's even more of a connection.
This is the big hill.
Her own husband served until recently in Canada's army, and so her family also carries the wounds of war.
I can see the difference. I can see the change in him. And it just carries on throughout the years, so I can see the effects as he gets older.
But that kind of change also would have happened to families a century ago.
Well, of course, it was still war. It was still people getting hurt. It was still people's sons and daughters not coming home, and then their life changes, and it continues on down.
And in some cases, communities disappear.
And communities disappear. Life as you know it. It's gone.
That's life, I suppose. You just got to try and keep on going.
This is likely a final farewell to Three Arms for Eric. Age has made the journey a challenge. Pulling himself back in the boat, leaving the home taken from him by war. He wept on the boat ride out, thankful for one last look. David Coleman, CBC News, Three Arms, Newfoundland.
What an incredible piece of our history that David brought us there. We'll be right back with our moment of the day. Tonight, it's a reunion of sorts as a woman who worked as an electrician during the Second World War takes a trip down memory lane.
First, though, as we go to break, a preview of a new podcast that Ian's been working on. The first episode's dropped tomorrow morning, and we'll have special coverage right here on The National tomorrow night. Take a look.
CPA 21, how do you read? CP 21, Vancouver, do you read?
Three staccato cries of Mayday and an eyewitness report of a mid-air explosion is about all that is known this morning of the British Columbia air disaster, which yesterday claimed 52 lives.
We were told nothing.
They knew what had happened, but they didn't know why.
It looked like a plane just falls straight from the sky.
59 minutes after it took off, an explosion on board.
Police had 4 suspects, but no one claimed responsibility and no charges have ever been laid.
It's remarkable to me that a human being could decide to blow up a plane full of strangers. So many lives were impacted by this.
Little girl had a knapsack on her back with a doll, and the little boy was dressed in a knitted suit. My mom was on that plane. Nobody told us that he'd been killed.
The families really were kind of left in the dark after all this happened.
You know, we keep hearing about these 4 alleged persons that could have been involved.
We have a very good idea who the responsible person was.
One of the cleaners of the aircraft saw someone getting on.
Whoever it is or was to this day has gone undetected.
I really want to know what happened, and it makes me extraordinarily angry that it's always been a big secret.
This was not an accident. This was pure murder.
Marion Martin held the lives of Second World War pilots in her hands. At just 16, she got a job at the de Havilland plant in Toronto. Her job was to finish the wiring in the Mosquito bomber. Now, 75 years later, Martin has been reunited with the bomber. Her son brought her to the Alberta Aviation Museum in Edmonton to check out the plane, and her reaction to it is our moment of the day.
Oh my goodness, this is something else. After all these years, I used to sit in that thing all the time when I got my work done. I was always good with my hands, and I enjoyed the work. They decided to let everybody that was working on these planes to see how they work. And they said everybody come out, the whole plant came out. There were a lot of people. And then they said, just hang around, hang around. We did, and the mosquito bomber, they showed us the power. My goodness, and the roar of the motor was unbelievable. Oh, we knew from the beginning it was important. You had to do good work. You must do a good job because the pilots are depending on you. It was a very, well, you felt you were doing something to help the war effort. Fantastic, fantastic. Brings back a lot of memories.
I love Marion. Let's start there. But Marion also represents, you know, some of the Canadian women that when the men went off to war, they had to sort of pick up some of the work in factories. They had to do some of the manufacturing of the equipment and the bombers that were needed. More than 1 million Canadian women did that during the Second World War, and that's astonishing too.
Yeah, astonishing and important. You know, I do think it's sad, though, to think that there will come a time when we no longer have access to these sorts of first-hand accounts of the war and what it meant to be part of that effort. But I suppose all the more reason to really take these moments, remembrance day or not, and take the time to reflect and to appreciate. Indeed. That is The National for this November 11th. Good night.
Good night.